Hello, my name is Jerry Ashley. I'm the artist. The concept is mostly watercolors. They may look like oils, but the process I use, the style is dry on wet and wet on dry. So this became a picture out of 3 photographs. The challenge for me has been a lot of questions were asked. I said, do you draw animals? And I said the challenge would be what kind of animal they would like. So I actually painted this painting for my wife years ago. So it came to life because I wanted to do something more prevalent, where animals are out in the woods, and these are deer, and they're I call it the fresh water because they're going to a place where they found water to survive. This one here is a painting from Ohio along the roadside, and the reason why I started drawing barns is the fact they're disappearing. So anytime I've done paintings, about 95% of the time I go back to do another painting of it would be gone. So I would mark the area where it came from, like the root, the place in Ohio. And I believe this is near where, in Coshocton County, where I'm from. And so I thought it'd make a beautiful painting when I did it. So I've kept it over these years just to show a sample of my work. This one here is another watercolors. You can see in the background. Normally I tell people when they do an art project, you do the backdrop first, the foreground, then you do the subject matter last. Because you're going to focus on what the subject's going to be. This is actually a farm outside of Sugar Creek, Ohio, on Route 39. I had stopped along the road and captured it when I was sitting there in a car on a little hill, like looking down at it, and I thought, wow, I said, what a view. Because you can see a lot of different angles in Ohio hills and rolling hills, and when they do these kind of things, you can see the you can see the hills in the background and the trees come alive. And this is one of my favorite paintings I ever done. This one here, I took a trip on Route 66 out west, and I was driving on Interstate 40, which is part of 66, and I saw this barn in the foreground. You can see the mountains in the background, and it was just sitting there quietly. I thought, man, I would make a super painting. So I took a picture of it. I did it from a photograph. So anyway, that's the only way I could stop to do it, because they wouldn't let you go on the old Route 66. This one here is the dry brush method. It's the same thing as I painted this for my mom years ago, and she wanted a red barn. And she asked me, where in the world did you find that red barn? And it's sitting south of Route 60 in Ohio. And I said, well, hopefully the barn is still there. That was so long ago since I painted. I think it's 1977 when I painted this one. And this one here is in Amish country. We went to the Amish door off of Route 62 in Ohio. So my wife is taking a nap, so I want to take a drive. So I went around the corner about 5 miles from the Amish store, and this was sitting there. And I call it the quiet place because it looks like it's just, not functional anymore. It's just was sitting there like quietly in its place. So I thought, well, this is more of a splash, a wash. When you put the wash on, you let it spray out and spread itself. And you use a little bit of the dry method here, but it's mostly on water. That what happens here is you wet the it's a hot press water-based waterboard, what you call it, like a piece of paper, but you wet it down and you let it dry for about 20 minutes. So, you soak it down, let it dry, so the pores in the paper picks up what you want to pick up, and when you put the wash on, and the pigment spreads, and you let it go out of control. So that's how you get this different colorations in here, greens and yellows to spread out more, and then you have more control. The white of the paper, this right here, the white part was untouched. It's part of the paper. This one here was a place in Ohio. It was my boyhood place where I grew up in. I only lived about a mile from this place. So this is what got me to paint barns, because when I went back to paint this, it was just undisturbed, you know, like a place that's never been used in quite a while. So I call it the last barns, because sometimes I do paintings of a barn, they disappear without a piece of wood left. So the place is called Possum Hollow. I grew up on Route 1 in Ohio. We had a barn, a farm, 120 acres, so everybody along this road had acreage, and these barns were disappearing quickly. And I think there's only one barn left on the Route 1, where it used to be 10 barns, 10 farms, but they're gone. So I went there. This is early, late fall when I did this. I stood there and drew it on a pad, and the concept was I wanted to save it in time. It's like a timepiece where I remember what things look like. So when I started doing barns, I was extremely interested in how barns are functional, how they work in working farms. So this was just a piece I wanted to do, and I want to first place ribbon at an art show when I first showed it. This was done in 81. Can't believe it's been that long ago. This one here is the grist mill. This is the dry brush method. You have more control over the paint, where it goes, and less water. So this was an actual place in Tennessee. I was handed a brochure, a booklet from a teacher, and he said, "Can you paint this?" But it was black and white. I didn't see it in color. I actually never saw the place. So I went home and I painted it, and they saw it, and someone else wanted another painting of it. So I ended up painting this painting 9 times. So I had a lot of practice doing this, but I saved this one. This was done in 82. This was the hardest thing to do, is get the wheel to look like it's standing out, holding out, and moving. So I thought, well, this is one of the best pieces I ever done, I believe myself, personally. And this one is in Ohio. I was interested in gable barns. This is a Gothic barn because of the arch. It makes it half circle. And this is a winter scene. Again, all the white on there is white of the paper. I didn't have to touch it. Normally when you do watercolors, you don't use white anyway. So this was off of Route 751. It's near where I grew up, and it's still there. And I just happened to see it in the wintertime, and I thought, wow, it was a beautiful setting. I thought this would be the great piece, and making it simple, and it's very elegant to me. Painting here was my granddaughter's. Her name's Brianna, and she's phenomenal with the things she can do. Like, for example, she sewed 175 masks when the pandemic first broke out to a hospital in Genesis. So she takes up sewing, she takes up crafts, she makes rings. So when she came out to do paintings, she painted this for her grandma. It was Rebecca Ashley. So just got this one last year. This one here, she painted when she was 10 years old. And I thought, wow, I said, she's going to be something when growing up doing artwork. And right now she's painting sunsets, dark and light, to bring the light out. So what I teach her to tell her is that when you draw something, draw light. You stroke it one way this way, like a feather. Sweep it across, and you do it lightly, so you don't have to erase. The lines become part of the artwork because it's in there. And normally I tell her, when you start a painting, draw a dot in the center of the page. So you draw right to the center each time, so you won't run off the page or run off the piece of artwork. So she loves it. She loves doing the artwork. This one here again it's more simple than it looks because 90% of the paper is white. You don't touch it. It looks that way because you got the non-glare glass, and it was pretty simple to do. I tried to do the perspective to it where it disappears, where the fence line goes down and out and over where it disappears, so it gives more of a dimensional look. And I saw this a long time ago. I guess it was 1980 when I painted it, but I just thought, well, it's a calming of the season and nothing was moving except for it snowed. So again, when you see like the yellow in the sky and the trees in the background, this is all white. And of course, again, artists don't use white pigment because it won't take on the paper anyway. So I had to be very careful not to make a mistake because, you know, when you run the water, you know, like here is a dry brush, so I get this color in there. So this is one I like because I grew up on a farm and we had a wagon, and we called it a grain wagon, and we used to go out on the orchards and fields and pick up oats or bales of hay in this kind of wagon. So that's it brings back memories of what I knew as a child when I grew up. So when I saw this wagon, they're very hard to find anywhere. So that's what I try to do, is try to save something in my mind that meant something when I grew up.